Southwest Center School Talk. Collaboration supporting our schools. Southwest Center School Talk. Southwest Center School Talk.
Welcome, friends, to episode 3 of the Southwest Center School Talk podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bozarth. So our vision around launching these podcasts has always been pretty simple. We really wanted to spark thoughtful conversations about the issues that matter most to students, educators, and our communities across our region. And if you listen to our first 2 episodes, we spent quite a bit of time exploring this conversation around artificial intelligence and what it means for our classrooms and our teachers and our students. And while AI is certainly shaping the future of education, it's not the only thing that's impacting our schools right now. So today's conversation, we're going to shift gears quite a bit, but this topic is really no less important. And we're going to dive into this topic of school bond proposals, and we're going to interview a local school superintendent about an upcoming vote in their district. Now, let's be honest. In 2026, the topic of voting can stir up a lot of emotions. And it's really easy for these conversations to drift into the kind of political noise that we're all used to hearing. But this conversation isn't about politics. It's about people. It's about students who walk into buildings every day and communities making decisions about the kind of learning environments they want to provide for those students. So today, our goal is pretty simple. It's to better understand the role of public support in our schools and to take a closer look at the careful planning that goes into decisions like these. So to help us walk through that, we're joined today by Superintendent of Joplin Schools, Dr. Kerry Sachetta. Dr. Sachetta, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Chris, for having us.
So to get this conversation started, Kerry, let's have kind of an overview of school funding. Like, why do districts need community support for bond proposals?
Well, the biggest reason why is the way school funding works is there are buckets where our funding goes. In operations is where the biggest bucket goes because that takes care of the people in the district when it comes to salaries. And the general operations, just the cost of doing business to make sure kids have the best resources that we can provide them in the classroom and everything else. But also there are a couple other areas where debt service and capital improvements are also funding mechanisms. And we have money that goes into both. And in debt service, you have to go to the voters to ask the voters to approve debt, usually bonds, to go long term to build things. Capital improvements, or Fund 4 as we call it, is more for maintaining your facilities. You can build out of Fund 4, but typically the type of money that is in Fund 4 is, in today's world, it sounds like a lot of money. You know, a district could have anywhere from 2, 3, 4, 5 million to maybe 25 million in Fund 4 if they're fiscally responsible and they've saved their money over some time. But if you want to build a new building, 25 million is not a very big building today. And then if you expend all your money out of Fund 4, you can't take care of things on an annual basis when roofs start leaking or HVAC units go down, which can be very expensive, or you need to put a new parking lot in or whatever it is because of a disaster or whatever happens. Sometimes insurance doesn't take care of everything. So you got to make sure that you keep a reserve in Fund 4. So what we have done is been very responsible. I believe our board has been very good with helping us direct how we want to spend our money out of Fund 4, and they've put down some money out of our reserves in Fund 4 to start this process. But when a long-range facility committee comes to you after you've convened them and they've spent 2 years working on this, and they're looking at what are our needs in the district. And it's pretty obvious we have some needs, and so to build new buildings or to remodel buildings extensively or to remodel several buildings takes a lot of money. And that's why going to the voters and asking for, the debt service to be extended is where we're at.
No, that helps because I think sometimes the general public understands like somewhere our tax dollars are funding schools, but I don't think we always fully understand how that funding mechanism works. And so I think that really helps clarify that for our listeners. So this proposal that Joplin is bringing to the voters here in April is for $40 million. And as you said, I think the cost of construction, anybody who's been to the hardware store recently or has done any kind of remodel to their house understands that it's really expensive to, whether it be roof repairs or whatever it might be. Give us maybe a little bit of an overview of where these dollars would be spent in terms of what this bond is trying to achieve, Kerry.
So when the board decided to back a plan at three of our elementary schools, Jefferson, Royal Heights, and McKinley, our oldest elementary schools, we started with them. They said, you know what, we have reserves of $11 million that we can afford to spend towards those schools and still keep a reserve balance and enough money to take care of everybody else in the district on an annual basis in terms of buying new buses, putting new roofs on, because we have 16 school buildings in the district, and every year somebody needs an extensive improvement or in maintenance. Excuse me. And so we started that with Jefferson, Rural Heights, and McKinley out of reserves, and that is in the process right now. Well, what the Long Range Facility Committee came to us after 2 full years of study said, hey, all 7 elementary schools that were built well before the tornado, and one of them, Rural Heights, is 100 years old. It's been built onto several times. Those schools are not at the standard that the 3 newest schools are at in terms of square footage in specific classrooms, amenities in specific classrooms. Maybe in a couple cases we could improve the safety coming into the school in the vestibule area. Parking around the schools, woefully inadequate compared to our new schools. And so the idea was, if you have 3 brand new schools, virtually brand new, 2 of them are about 12, 13 years old now, and Dover Hill's just a few years old, all built on 21st century learning standards, where kindergarten classrooms have 1,100 square feet and a bathroom. Special ed rooms all have a specific, depending on what the disability is of the students, specific size ranges and amenities. Libraries that maybe haven't been touched in 40 years in terms of aesthetics, its look, its flow, everything. Also, pre-K is a big deal for us now. 4-year-old classrooms were thought about in 1993 in the district, but the district wasn't able to do it. We just found some information lately. But in the last 3 years, we came to the conclusion that we want to give our 4-year-olds a head start on school. In our schools. So a 4-year-old could come to school in many cases with their older sibling that might be in 2nd, 3rd, or 4th grade. And it's been woefully popular, or actually very popular, in 3 of the buildings that we have it in now. And we want to extend that throughout the district. Art and music. You were a principal in district before, and I'm sure there were times where you had to move art and music around in your building because of the size of a class. Yeah. And now we want to make sure art and music either have a dedicated space for both or a dedicated space for each separately. And so that's real important to us because the fine arts is important. We want our kids to be well-rounded. We want our kids to enjoy coming to school and learn through that creative side. And that's just a few of the things. So when we started looking at all these things, and the thing that we want the listeners to understand too is we will never spend enough money to make the outside of, say, Jefferson Elementary look exactly like Irving Elementary, because Irving looks like a newer school from a different time period on the outside. But what we want at Jefferson Elementary and the other 6 elementaries is we want them to function exactly like Irving Elementary on the inside. And that's what we're attacking. In all these cases, we're either adding a new set of classrooms in addition to the outside, but we're also going on the inside and making sure that classrooms on the inside, libraries, even cafeterias as well. Cafeterias are small in a lot of cases, and we want to expand those with some rooms that are already adjacent to them and make sure that everything functions exactly the same across the district.
Oh, and that's amazing, because I think sometimes we lose sight of, and I love that you touched on this, like we see the outside of a building, but we don't always think about how everything functions inside those walls. And having these opportunities, regardless of where you live in the community, you know that your child has the same opportunities as everybody else, regardless of whether they're in a 60-year-old building or a 5-year-old building.
Exactly. And I think, and what we really want, and we use this term, is we don't want people shopping for, when they come to Joplin or move across town, we would prefer them not to shop for a school. We want them to shop for their home and know that rest assured, wherever you're at, you're going to come up to a school that's well kept on the outside, which we do the best we can to keep our schools looking nice on the outside, and they do. But when they walk in that building, that no matter what your kids' needs are, they're met in that school just like they are across town at this school that may have been built 5 years ago or 15 years ago.
Yeah. And that's not just being a good steward of finances and being fiscally responsible. That's being a good steward of your community. Like that's meeting the needs of your community as well.
Right. And it wasn't that long ago, and you were in the district at the time too, we still had a few elementaries that had trailers or modules outside. And so the board back in the early 2010s said, we want to get into a situation over the next 10 years where we rid ourselves of all the extra modulars and trailers because we want our buildings. So this is kind of taking it to the next step and saying, okay, what did some of those trailers and modulars do for overflow or take care of? Well, how can we do that within the confines of the building, whether there's an addition or remodeling on the inside?
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Can I pivot a little bit in this conversation? Something that I failed to mention so far is we know that this bond proposal is for $40 million, but the timing of this is important for our listeners to understand that this is a no tax increase. Yes. Do you want to speak to that a little bit?
I do, and that's really the first thing. And a lot of times whenever we're doing presentations in the community, we lead with that because the first thing people want to know, let's just get right on the table right now. We're not asking to raise your tax rate. We're asking to extend your the current tax that's being paid. And what we do is we try to explain to them that, our tax rate right now is $3.66 per $100 of assessed valuation. And 76 cents of that $3.66 is in debt service. And the rest of it goes to operations. And so, we want people to know that our plan is to keep the overall tax rate at $3.66 and to keep the debt service portion at 76 cents for the foreseeable future. What happened in 2007 and 2012, both times, the last two bond issues that were put out there that actually asked the voters to raise taxes, in each of those bond issues, 7 and 12, we asked the voters to raise the tax rate by 35 cents, the levy in debt service by 35 cents. What that did, and I try to explain to people, the heavy lifting has been done for the foreseeable future. Joplin Schools, when they made those decisions to put bonds out for 20 years, put ourselves really in a position to, when future needs arise, we can take care of them within the bonding capacity that we've established in the past. So that 76 cents, what's happening is our bonds are being paid off a little bit every year, and that's allowed us to go back and raise more money through selling of bonds, but keep the tax rate to support those payments the same. So do our taxes go up from time to time? Yes, everybody knows that there's reassessment every 2 years. And hopefully it's gradual, it's minimal and gradual. We all want that. But what we're saying is, as a school district, which is the major portion of your tax burden, we're not raising the rate. We're keeping the rate stable. Reassessment, yes, that can change your taxes, but we're not changing it because of the rate. We're trying to be fiscally responsible. And basically what I believe is our tax rate's the lowest in the area, except for one other school district. And some other school districts have much higher levies. And so a house valued at the same in our district would be quite a bit less in taxes, up to $200, $300, $400 a year, compared to some of our other fine local partner school districts and that's what their voters decided to do. But, we can ride that 366 and still take care of things. And I like to say, we can have our cake and eat it too. We can have a low tax rate, and we can take care of our kids at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and I think if we look at it as this investment in our community, right? Like, and as you said, we're not asking for additional money. We're just continuing to invest. And I know, my youngest is getting ready to graduate, but I have a vested interest in that community and in that school system, right? Regardless of whether my kids are there or not. And I think most people would agree that that's our public schools are important, and we want to continue to invest in those. So no, that's a great explanation. Thank you. Anything else? I know you touched on the elementary schools quite a bit. Are there any other pieces of the bond that you want to speak to that might be helpful for our listeners?
Yes. So the elementary schools, we knew this when we started the Long Range Facility Committee. We looked at our standards for our new bills and everything. We knew this, and we wanted to make sure that what we were seeing was, that the community saw. We had 40 people on this committee, and they were very thoughtful people from all walks of the community when it comes to careers, parents, former parents, grandparents, but they're also business owners and people in different areas. So we had a diverse group of people when it comes to perspectives. And they saw it very vividly. The elementaries were the focal point. They were number one. That's where we were going to start with this. This needed to be done. During the conversations, organically, what came up was some people started asking about an indoor facility because they had been to other communities close to us and even in the Springfield area, and indoor multi-purpose activity, educational and athletic centers had been popping up, and a lot of them have a lot of different uses. Some of them are just for athletics. Some of them are multi-purpose for activities like band or ROTC. And some of them are, a good significant portion is educational, like for classroom space or band or choir or any kind of other activity. So we started investigating, and we had some interest. And then we also sent out a survey. We thought, okay, well, maybe we need to survey our staff and our parents. Is there interest in this? And it came back 72% of the people said that they would support that, in a survey. And it was just a year ago is when that happened. And so we thought, well, we're gaining confidence with that. Okay, maybe there's something to it. And so I do a lot of presentations in the community at service clubs and groups. And I think there were 6 service clubs that I went to, and most of them have 15 to 30 people, and we're sitting there talking, thoughtful people that's involved in the community and invested in volunteerism, albeit. And I just brought it up to them, just this conversation, and it seemed people seemed supportive of it. I didn't get any pushback, nobody said anything negative, and so obviously then we talked to our students more and others, and we thought, you know what, let's bring this out and let's make this part of the project. And so what we decided was we went and looked around. We went down to Arkansas. We went all over Missouri, in Oklahoma, all over the place, looking at different versions. And what we landed on was a 90,000 square foot building. We wanted to accommodate our weightlifting and PE classes every day because we're getting crowded. The other thing that was crowding was the summertime weight program. We have 500 to 700 kids that come through 5 or 6 weeks in the summer. It's very important, all day long, and our gyms were overwhelmed with that. The ROTC needed a place also for some of their maneuvers and different things that they do. Band, we talked to our band. Band stands out in the sweltering heat for 3 weeks in the summer. It's miserable. I don't know, it's just hotter than it was when we were kids. Yep. The other thing is that what we do now that we didn't do when we were kids is we really pay attention to humidity. And when the heat and the humidity get to be a certain point, we don't let the kids go outside. So there are several days in the summer and in the early fall and even in the late spring sometimes where kids are not to be outside, or if they are, it's early in the morning or it's at different times. So that weighs into it. Inclement weather weighs into it. We have 3 gyms at JHS and they're full. And so when you have 6 sports going on or 5 sports at one time, and they all end up inside, you can't accommodate it. The other thing was we thought if we're going to build something like this, it needs to be an opportunity for career education. So we have a couple classrooms in there that would, encompass career education courses. We're out of space at Joplin High School now when it comes to additional courses. Our career academies has expanded. We want to make sure that was a possibility. Our cheer and dance kids have never had a dedicated space, ever. They would, practice in the hallways. If the gyms were always full, they'd have to come at 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning or at night at 7 o'clock because the other sports. And so we would like to give them a dedicated space, some storage. And then the field would be 80 yards long, and it would accommodate band, obviously, and it's marked for band. It would be marked for soccer. It would be marked for softball, baseball, and obviously football. And then we would even put some, 2 lanes of track on one side to practice starts, practice sprints. Softball in a mezzanine area, baseball, tennis, golf simulator. That's where our classrooms would be in an upper deck area. And in the community room that could be rented out to the community. It could be a flexible space for a classroom, could be a flexible space for testing. And we asked our athletic director, we said, hey, who would all use this? Because we need to make sure that people realize that this would not be a luxury. This would be really a necessity and a use, multi-use. So on our website, people can go see about the bond issue when we give the educational message. And there's 20 to 30 groups or teams or activities or performing groups that could utilize the facility in each season. So he marked it out in fall, spring, summer, and winter. And it's incredible. And there was no question that it would be the most used facility in the district as far as the amount of hours, because we would use it all day, every day during school for educational purposes. Then at night and probably till 6:30, 5 nights a week. And we're talking about multiple activities. We're not talking about one activity. We were looking at one time with all the different areas. Minimally, we could have 7 different activities and or sports, educational activities going on at one time. Wow. Minimally. So if you can think of 7 different distinct groups, in different parts of that building, utilizing it inside because of rain, because of snow, because of too much humidity, whatever the case, it would be highly used.
Wow, that's incredible. So I keep hearing this resounding theme of all the planning and the thought that went into this, and I think it's important for our listeners to understand, like when these plans come together, this isn't something that we sit together on a Friday night and we draw up on a napkin. Like there is a lot of years of planning, and you talked about the long range facility team that provided input on this, and going to surveying the community, talking to students, talking to your athletic. Like I just think it's amazing when you think about all the different moving parts and the planning that goes into this. And I just think it's important people understand that there's a lot of proactive and a lot of vision about what's this going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and how does this affect our community. So I think that's kudos to you and your team for all the work that's been put into this.
Well, thank you.
For our listeners who are interested in supporting this, I know the vote's coming up in early April. Any details about voter registration, dates, anything that we want to share on this?
Well, obviously the vote is April 7th, and we just want everybody to go out and vote. We want them to be informed. The district, cannot advocate, but we can educate. There is a bond committee that is advocating for it, and they're out and about. But we would just urge our patrons and especially our parents to make sure that they go to our joplinschools.org, and it's pretty prominent about what's called the Eagle Bond. And you click on there and you can see what's going to happen at every school. I think what's important is everybody that attends the 7 attendance areas, Stapleton, Cecil Floyd, Kelsey, and Eastmoreland, to make sure, as well as Royal Heights, McKinley, and Jefferson, that they understand what's going to happen if the bond passes at their school. And so that everybody needs to understand that. There's also pictures and information about what's called the Indoor Multipurpose Center, the Talon Center, we're calling it right now temporarily, that what will all function in that facility, because all kids end up at the high school. And there'll be middle school kids that will be able to use that facility, as well as Joplin youth programs at different times. And so, all kids point towards the high school eventually, but before they get in high school, there's going to be opportunities to utilize that facility too. So we just want everybody educated on what it will do for now and the future of our school district before they go on April 7th.
Oh, that's great. And I just appreciate your time today. And I think just this idea of being very open and transparent. And I think what I've seen on the website is great. The information's super easy to get to, and it explains things well. So folks, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation and understanding a little bit more about school funding and why bonds are necessary. And we certainly appreciate Dr. Sachetta's time spending time with us today. And until next time, this is Chris Bozarth, and you've been listening to the Southwest Center School Talk Podcast.
Southwest Center School Talk.